Hello and welcome to one more episode of Hotana, the Vindicator, Inquisitor, and Shaman. On our last episode, we had just purged the Griver's Mill from the Caphonians. Now you can see here that we have a Black Legion guardman protecting this place, so people can now extract woods in peace. I don't know if I would send only one guard here with this bunch of Caphonians and all, but who knows, maybe that guard is actually a great hero. Maybe that guy can handle himself and a bunch of other people who might need his protection. This episode we are going to be moving towards the village of Darkvale, and I want to be finishing at least the village of Darkvale. However, there's one thing. The village of Darkvale is notorious for the absurd quantity of lore texts that can be found there. Also, with all the recording, there's not much space in my laptop left to be saving these recordings, and it's also getting late. Therefore, this episode might be actually just the village of Darkvale. Okay, so there's a little bit of walk till we get there, but there's not much more. Like here, see, if you get to this seal right here, which actually looks a little bit like the seal Sedina used to stop us in the beginning when we were possessed by the Furious. Well, you are getting closer and closer to the village of Darkvale. So we found the first of our many texts that we will be reading on this episode. And since we're level 42, we can now put this, the Thunder Touch Bracers, which are going to give us more physical damage and lightning damage, and +2 to Storm Surge and 1 to Brute Force. So our Shaman skills get even more powerful. Like, dude, just look at Storm Surge, it's 18 of 12. Look at that, it's dealing 7,000 electrocute damage. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. And we also got 1+ in Brute Force. So here we're going to be completing Brute Force. And not moving forward just yet, we still have to read Trevor's note. For weeks I have been getting the feeling that something bad is coming, like a knot in the pit of my stomach that won't go away, and each day it gets a bit worse. I have also noticed a lot more travelers from the captain of Arulan, heading south with all their worldly possessions. I asked a few for news from the north, but nobody could give me a clear answer. Just an unshakable feeling that something awful was about to happen. How is it that we all share the same dread? So some people, before the wake of the Green Dawn, had this kind of premonitions that something bad was about to go down. No shipment from the capital again. Last week we didn't get our latest deliveries, and now again, no shipment coming in means no shipment going out. How am I supposed to run a store if I don't have supplies to sell? Local goods are fine, but I rely on being able to sell things people can't get straight from their neighbors. I am hearing hushed conversations in the streets, and a customer told me she saw some cloaked figures rolling a barrel down to the lake. And now the town drunk is missing. More likely than not, he finally tripped and tumbled over the ravine. But still, there's a strange chill in the air, and everyone seems to be on edge. I'm starting to think that packing up shop and heading south may be the best thing to do. Now, I want you guys to remember this, cloaked figures. And we are facing a lot of cultists going in this general direction, which means this is the first. The first. By the way, if you get to this point, it shows that it's the Fort Heron, which is a place that we are probably going to be visiting in our faction quests. But it was the first note where someone starts to realize that the Cultists might be a problem. Now this is Evelyn's note, the page 3. All begins and ends with Cthulhu. I can see that now. My family is suffering, the poverty we endured, these are all symptoms of our separation from Cthulhu. The Bloodsworn have shown me the way to salvation. I have prayed long and hard at the altar, poured my life blood out on the stones until the answers came to me. The only way my family can be truly saved is to be reunited with Cthulhu. I have made the necessary arrangements. The sacrifice will proceed on. So it's interesting how the very cultists of Cthulhu were ready to give up on their own families if that would mean that they would get the answers and the proximity, the closure with their god. Right here we find one of the Chthonic seals of binding, which is why I tell you that you don't have to actually sit and be farming these Chthonic seals of binding back on the Bloodgrove or Sorrow's Bastion. You can just move forward, and when you find the cultists here in Village of Darkvale, usually they're going to be dropping enough for you to complete the side quest. Doesn't matter which faction you're with. Here we find another journal, which is the journal from the Mayor Bridgewaters. I'm not one to wish ill on anyone for their beliefs, but I can say I like this new faith spreading around town of late. With all the frightening rumors coming from north, religious fanatics stirring up the populace is the last thing we need. Keith Strifebow says this religion of Cthulhu is not new, but in fact very old. Well, if it's been around for so long, how come I never heard of it? One of their preachers invited me to sit in and listen on their sermons, to dispel any ill feelings I have towards the matter. They seemed innocuous enough, but the obsession with blood and rejoining with their god in the end of days left me uneasy. Another person has gone missing. Last week it was Ton, who admitted it was a drunk and a nuisance to the town, but this week it was Mary Tess, the town seamstress. Zaria told me that she saw Mary leaving town with a group of refugees, just as Trevor did a few days prior. At least Trevor stopped by my place to say he was leaving. But Mary? She didn't say goodbye or take anything with her. It's all just very strange. As I write this, I'm preparing to meet with the town leaders to work on a way to handle all of the travelers passing through the Darkvale gate. Hundreds come through every day now. Thankfully, most don't stop, but if this keeps up, we'll have a real problem on our hands. I don't know what is going on in the capital, but it has everyone concerned. So as this lore note tells us, with everything, like with all the preparations, like the madness started to running, and some people feeling that things were not safe anymore in the capital, people were leaving from the north and traveling south, traveling, for example, towards Old Arcophia, and they have to pass through the village of Darkvale. Now, the mayor didn't like this, and he started to think with the other township members on a way he could stop all these people from just boarding his town. Because as he mentioned, most of them were just passing through. But what if people start to seek shelter in his little village? Then other problems start to get rampant, like with a lot of people coming in and out of a town. How do you control if a person is missing? How do you control the wave of crimes? How do you control if they are going to have food or water or really any basic thing that they need? So these things got the concern of the mayor. We have found another journal, and we are going to be reading it right now. The Peacekeeper Chambers Journal. So Peacekeeper is an old word for a sheriff, or the leader of the police, for example. Our little town is surrounded by forts and soldiers of the Imperium, and yet I have never felt more alone or vulnerable. Every day I see more and more soldiers leaving Fort Heron to head north, while the road through Darkvale is a never-ending stream of refugees heading south. Those fleeing the capital tell horrific tales of people gone crazy, of robbing and looting as madness consumes the head of our nation. So as you can see, there was a reason the mayor was concerned about these people going through his little village, his township, because how can you tell if a refugee that might be stopping in one of your hotels is someone that's going to be robbing and looting and murdering the people that you have known all your life? One story even described a mob running down a woman in the street and devouring her alive. Sounds like a horror story, but I'm sure that is the whole truth. So now you see why they were so worried about these people stopping by in the village of Darkvale. With so many new faces in town, my deputies are tasked with holding the town together. Fighting over scarce goods has become a daily ritual. We have had several murders in the last 2 weeks, a concept entirely strange to our little village. 3 more people have vanished over the last week. At first we didn't pay it much heed, what with the coming and going of folk on account of the refugee situation. But with these 3, it now makes a total of 6 that have gone missing since dawn, with not a soul aware of where they'd gone to. Whatever is steering the capital must be making its way here as well. Some unseen dread that you can't quite pinpoint, but you can see it in the face of those traveling south. Desperation. Fear. It's all around us now, and it has taken root in Darkvale. The mayor has expressed similar concerns, particularly around a strange new religion that's been attracting followers recently. Could they be behind the recent disappearances? So as you can see, those in charge of keeping people safe were already noticing that something was amiss. Here we have Zarya's journal, the first part. Everything is proceeding as the Blood Lord had intended. My year-long employment as the town's apothecary has earned me the people's trust, and I am now in the perfect position to spread our cause. And for those who refuse to listen to reason, who refuse to embrace the truth that is Cthulhu, my position as healer has made it an easy thing to take life without arousing suspicion. A little bit of powder from Asterkar nightshade root mixed in with a prescription will put anyone to sleep for hours. After that, it's a simple matter of retrieving the dissenter and perform the required observances. With each person we return to Cthulhu, I carve his sigil in their flesh. For me, it is the most important step in the early stage of the draining ritual. The blood drains quickly from a slit across the carotid artery and drains into the specially prepared oak casks that the carpenter, another blessed by the Blood Lord of this task, prepares for me. Not as nice as the glass vessels that we have been preparing, but much easier to hide suspicion. The blood is stored in a second barrel, weighed down with stones, and then sunk to the bottom of the lake. Nearly every death over the last year has added to our tribute with no suspicion falling upon us. But now, with the servants of the false gods arriving at the capital and spreading havoc across the empire, our time has finally arrived to reveal ourselves from the shadows and usher humanity into the end times. All shall receive the gift of reunification. So this tells us a little bit more about the religious thing that the cultists believe on, and about how the cultists look at the Ephurios. Because if you notice from the very start of the game, cultists and Ephurios have been fighting one another, and now this reason is developed upon. The The Furious fight the Cultists because the Furious want the corpses of the people to breed more Furious, while the Cultists have desires for the bodies of people because they can either become further Cultists or their blood can be drained, as you can see on this room, like all this blood spatter, all this the bathtubs. You're going to understand once we read the journal, but this makes part of the ritual of draining blood from people and carving these people with the sigil of Kafon. And now we kind of understand a little bit of what is their religion. They believe on this god, Kafon, that for some reason had his blood taken, and I'm going to be delving deeper with you guys on this. If you go to the devotion, this is Kafon, the dying god. In an age preceding the creation of the mortal planes, an elder god was betrayed by his children, his body torn apart and drained of blood so that they could use its power to breathe life into their own creations. His remains were cast out of creation into the void, but incapable of death, the god lingered on in the darkness, doomed to an eternity of pain and madness, feeling the suffering and death of all mortal things that were given life from his blood. His name, forgotten by time, the dying god is known only as Kafon, he who dwells below creation. So, as you can see, the cultists want to drain this blood and make this rite of reunification, which is the whole meaning of religion. Religion is reconnecting. That's the whole meaning of the word back to its origins, to its roots. It's reconnection, reunification. They want to be reunited, not only them, but every living being, especially the humans, to Kafon, the dying god. Get this blood back to where it belongs. And we can see that the children of Kafon, the other gods, they drained his blood so they could create his things. So Brian Thorns, humans, insects, everything comes from Kafon originally. And then his children created the other stuff together. And I love mythologies, which is one of the reasons that Green Dawn's story just grabbed me by the neck, basically. By the way, that's already Zarya. I don't want to fight her just yet. I want to finish my thought. But she's going to be chasing me. Okay, I'm going to kill you and then I finish my thought, you annoying creature. And that's Zarya down. And we have her journal, which we are going to be reading in a moment, but just finishing my thought. I really love mythologies. And Green Dawn actually reminds me of the Babylonian mythology, because the mythology that people from Babylon believe is that there was this really evil creature that was killed, and from its flesh and blood humanity was created. So the Babylonians had their own reason for why humanity was evil, for why humanity had potential for doing bad things. And it's kind of interesting that Green Dawn gave us this kind of looking like this same connection. Look, humanity and all the things created, they have potential for evil, they have potential for being malevolent, because they originally came from the blood of Kafon, and Kafon is like, it's not the nicest god. He has these desires to just kill stuff, and to even to a extent, Kafon doesn't appreciate much life, because as you can see from what we read in the devotional aspect, apparently there weren't many things created back then. There was basically Kafon and his children in a void. The mortal planes were not created yet. The creatures of the cosmos were not created yet. They were created a long time after, by Cthulhu or the other gods. But whatever Cthulhu created is distorted, twisted, and it only has the desires of killing to bring the blood of those things back to Cthulhu itself. Let's read the second journal that... oh, the bathhouse journal first, and then the Zarya journal. So the bathhouse. The process of collecting blood was so slow it was driving me crazy. So I set up a 2-tank system, then rigged the public bathhouse plumbing with a drain switch. Now we can drain the water from the tubes back into the water tank. But when I flip the switch, the drain will go into the second tank, where the blood can then be stored. However, the pulley system with hooks was the crowning accomplishment. It housed out of sight when not in use, but when we are ready for sacrifices... Zarya has provided me with nightshade roots to dissolve with the bath salts. Combined with the hot water, it should lull our guests to sleep. Then we drain the water, perform the rites, flip the switch, and collect the offerings without spilling a single drop. Okay, so that knock at the door that you guys might have heard, my guitar is back. I'm kinda happy. We had borrowed the guitar to one of our neighbors, and now the guitar is back. Anyway, let me proceed from where I was. So, it took some effort, but I'm proud of what I have set up. It is the first step to mass collections, and it will speed up the process. I cannot wait to tell the others. So, this is Harold Feldring, the Darkvale carpenter, the carpenter that Zarya has mentioned. And now, let's read the second page of Zarya's journal. I have been informed by the messengers of the Bloodlord that the preparations for the resurrection at the necropolis have begun. Our time to seize the town is now. The sheriff and his peacekeepers will be dealt with first. With them gone, the remaining civilians will fall in line with our doctrines or be harvested for the ritual. I have already dispatched my loyal Bloodsworn to barricade the Darkvale gates, trapping the refugees inside. They will all feel the ritual in due time. Let me show you what she's talking about. We just came through this place, right? Oh, sorry. We just came from village of Darkvale, right? But if you try to return, there's this gate here and there's a bunch of rubble right here. So I don't know, we kinda open a path through rubble, but we cannot even return through this rubble. They will feel the ritual in due time. Once news of this reaches the Black Legion, we will have to be prepared for a counter-assault. I will personally see to converting the frightened and misguided who remain in Darkvale. If they will not join our cause, then they can dance at the end of a rope and be drained as encouragement to those who have yet to choose. They must all learn that there is no place safer than under the guidance of the Bloodlord. They must come to understand that there is no peace to be found in the lands to the south. Only in the warm embrace of Cthulhu will we truly be where we belong. So yeah, as I told you, this episode is going to be here. It was an episode that was a lot more lore-wise, but maybe some of you guys are interested in lore as much as I am. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I see you guys next time. Thank you.